an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden is vowing freedom will prevail after Russia invades Ukraine. Speaking from the White House, Biden announced new sanctions that target banks and Russia's elite class. There is, however, disagreement between the U.S. and Europe over one major proposed Russian sanction.
The so-called nuclear economic option against Russia would be to kick them out of the SWIFT banking system, an international system that allows money transfers from banks around the globe. President Biden said Russia will still have access to SWIFT because European allies are not in favor of kicking them out. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Ukraine is reporting nearly 60 fatalities as part of Russia's invasion. The country's Minister of Healthcare also said 170 people have been injured. A jury has found 3 former Minneapolis police officers guilty for violating George Floyd's civil rights. The jury said the 3 men violated Floyd's civil rights when they failed to provide Floyd with medical care as Derek Chauvin kneeled on his neck during an arrest 2 years ago. The stock market is closing with stocks up today. After starting the day with the Dow Jones down more than 800 points, it finished having risen 92 points. The CDC in Atlanta is getting ready to adjust some of its COVID-19 guidelines. Matt McClure has the details.
The agency is set to announce new numbers to guide COVID-19 restrictions, including mask mandates. It could come Friday or early next week. The agency won't be changing its recommendation to wear masks indoors where there are high levels of COVID-19 transmission. What it will do is change the way the CDC determines which areas are considered risky by looking at things like hospitalizations, emergency room visits, and deaths.
Vice President Harris is scheduled to make a trip to Louisiana Friday to make an infrastructure announcement. Harris will be joined by Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A bill reintroduced to Congress Tuesday would end the ability of pro sports teams to use tax-free municipal bonds to build new stadiums.
The move comes as the Washington Commanders want to build a new stadium, and Loudoun County officials join Congress in discussions about who will foot the bill. U.S. Representative Don Beyer of Virginia says billionaire owners of wealthy sports teams can afford to build the stadiums without using taxpayer funds. Meanwhile, the Virginia General Assembly passed measures to approve a $3 billion Washington Commanders NFL football stadium complex. The Leesburg Town Council sent a letter to the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors opposing the move. I'm Rebecca Hubbard.
A lawsuit is being filed by U.S. Air Force members who claim they haven't been granted religious exemptions from the COVID-19 vaccine. The plaintiffs argue officials violated the Religious Freedom Restoration Act by not allowing exemptions. The Air Force says its interest in protecting the health of service members to carry out its mission is indisputably compelling. A new bill in South Carolina is proposing to replace Confederate Memorial Day as a state holiday. Sarah Bartlett reports.
A Senate committee voted this week on the plan that would remove the May 10th holiday from the holiday list and would give employees a floating holiday instead. May 10th is the day Confederate General Stonewall Jackson died in 1863. The bill started as one to add Juneteenth, the day slaves in Texas were freed in 1865, as a holiday. Now, under the proposed legislation, if an employee wants June 19th or May 10th off, they'll have to use the floating holiday.
A crime-fighting goat helps capture a fleeing suspect in Henry County, Virginia. A deputy was attempting to arrest a man following a domestic assault last week when he ran from the scene, crashing through a fence line and heading into a nearby field. That's when the goat that lives there gave chase. The animal helped the deputy flush the suspect out of the woods. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
The first school for blacks in El Paso had only 7 students and was opened in March 1883 in the home of John Smith. Andrew Morlock was both principal and teacher. The school was given the name of Douglas School in tribute to Frederick Douglass, a well-respected statesman and orator and one of the country's strongest abolitionists. 484 students graduated from the school until 1955, when Black students were finally integrated into all El Paso schools. Some of the famous graduates of Douglass were actor Henry Thomas, who appeared in Gone with the Wind and Road to Zanzibar, William Roseborough of the Harlem Globetrotters, and Nolan Richardson of UTEP basketball fame.
The El Paso History Show with Jackson Polk and Melissa Sargent is sponsored by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant in Canutillo, Mission Del Rey Southwest for gifts and decor, Keystone Heritage Park, and Monterey Asset Management. It's the El Paso History Show, Saturday morning at 10, streaming live on Facebook and on News Radio 690.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of topics we're going through today, including the story that cannot be ignored. As much as we usually don't dip our toe into effects immediately outside of our area, this one, even at that level, you can't ignore the Russian invasion of Ukraine and all that comes with it. Hearing from some of our callers here today that there are already people from the borderlands on near the front lines of that, I guess would be the right way to put it, probably deployed with U.S. troops in some fashion or another, so in NATO ally countries, but a very tense and quickly evolving situation coming out of the Ukraine, of course. But we've got local elections to think about, the statewide implications of that. A lot of statements coming in from state elected officials as well, but we got that coming up. The election itself already going on, of course, but then election day next Tuesday. Want to talk to you a little bit about some of the plans we got coming up for that as well. Plus, calls on the line if you wanted to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Comments over on the streams as well. We got, Kevin Williams with a decent piece of advice. If you're driving, turn up the volume on 690 and let those next to you hear the show. Just don't blow out your own eardrums in the pursuit of that. But a lot of other commentary coming on about this. Ed Clore bringing up another situation happening. China buzzing Taiwan with fighter jets. Look over there, not here. I mean, that is another reason why I'm considering that the response that needs to happen now has to be strong. Because otherwise, I mean, if this is the capitulation of the Western bloc of NATO as it sits, that will certainly send a message, and other allies that are looking at, well, their decisions to be made are definitely, or adversaries in this case, definitely going to be analyzing the situation very closely. So just some of the stuff we're talking about. Michael Petta saying Putin knows any sanctions are toothless, calling that he can just shut off the energy to Europe and oil to the U.S. And notice Biden is still going to buy oil from Putin to keep financing Putin's aggression. That is a question, an interesting bit of analysis that come in from that, specifically that the Keystone XL, if I'm not naming the pipeline correctly, would have, once completed, more or less made up for the capacity that is likely to be lost domestically anyway from the imports that were coming from Russia. So actions have consequences, what I'm going to say there. But let's get to more calls in the line here. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Again, other topics, including the governor's visit, some commentary coming in from that. But let's get to the call in the line. We got Stephen on the east side here with us right now. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
All of these things are going to end up being local in the sense that, you know, what we pay for gas and what the truckers pay for gas to ship things around, as we've talked about before.
Oh, yeah.
And some people wonder, why would Putin risk destroying their economy, the Russian economy, by doing something like this? And I think he's comforted by the fact that they've got all kinds of deals with China. I mean, they're going to be shipping coal over to China. China's firing all these new coal-fired power plants that they're going to be building over the next, 10, 20 years. And so they're shipping coal from Russia over there. And also economically, China's going to have Russia's back. And so as long as the U.S. is under the delusion that we can change the climate by changing how we produce energy in the U.S., then they're going to continue to have power over the U.S. and Europe when it comes to energy, and that's going to affect us in inflation and all these different things because the whole world runs on that energy. And so if we're under that delusion that we can change the climate by producing less oil here in the U.S., then we're going to continue to lose, I think.
I mean, I've said it for a long time. Even if you do want to have a shift over here, and I think John Brazelton said it also as well a little bit earlier, that make sure you buy a $80,000 electric car. Gas prices will soon be $10 a gallon, even if you think that's a reasonable course of action. I think he was a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. I mean, if you want to see a transition and how the very basis of our transportation infrastructure for the vast majority of Americans work, you think it's going to happen overnight, you are dreaming, because it has to be a transition. I mean, heck, even the gas-based system we have did not just pop up fully formed overnight. It's developed over the better part of the last century, really. And so the idea of it being a switch there, but I mean, then real life intrudes on your values, right? I mean, just kind of a tiny microcosm of this was a story that kind of went unnoticed earlier this week or even yesterday about the Postal Service looking at having to continue using gas vehicles for its fleet because it can't afford, on the budget that is given to it, to upgrade to that. And so kind of write that large onto the whole American economy, and you're looking at the repercussions of actions and decisions that are being made. I mean, a lot of talk gets talked about with that pipeline and such as, well, it eliminated jobs, even if it wasn't totally capacity at that time. The question in my mind does definitely come up of, if that had been focused on, would it be able to be up and running now, and therefore making this less of an issue domestically anyway? Actions have consequences, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's also about futures, because the price of oil is based on what they think is going to happen in the future and how much supply is available. And you're absolutely right that the response from the U.S. should be strong and immediate. And opening up oil leases and those kinds of things would change those futures if this administration would be willing to do that. And if you really wanted to punish Russia, well, ramping up our production immediately would be the best way to do it. But the ideology is not lining up with that, so I don't think they're going to do it.
Lining up with reality, I think, would be the way to put it here, because there is a lot of, I mean, call it tinges of the Green New Deal, even if it's not exactly that in its entirety within any of these small parts, but it's seemingly towards that idea that if it's not going towards that, it cannot be allowed. I mean, those were the major considerations coming up from, well, Democrat lawmakers in response to even just the Postal Service's plan. So if you can't think about it in terms of, okay, does it fit my ideology, the consideration absolutely at this point needs to be, what is this going to mean strategically for us? What is it going to mean about the ability for this country to function if we're looking at, well, form over function, essentially, is what it comes down to at this moment.
Right. And I'm not against switching over to other forms of energy, but if they want to do something immediate, then they should boost the production right now.
I mean, if that is possible or not, that's something I've been considering today. How long would it take to ramp up? I mean, we've seen ebbs and flows even within our own region as gas prices have moved around of oil wells and production. So that would be an interesting question. If anyone has any perspective out there, would love to hear from you on what it would take to spin up further with, well, the capabilities that are already around here. But I appreciate the point in the call. I think we lost him there. All right. I mean, it's an evolving situation, absolutely, here. And, well, these elections that we are currently in are going to have maybe more than a little bit of an impact on that. Amongst other things, we have got the policies within the state of Texas, anyway, when it comes to oil and gas exploration and ability to drill. Of course, there are the federal impacts that happen with it. But just, I mean, the tale of two states that we often talk about, Texas versus New Mexico, and how they are considering it probably going to be coming into sharp focus as this crisis and the impacts that we see here locally continue for months is the best time frame that seems to come up for me. At the very least, that's what's being talked about out of, you know, national, international groups being involved in the response to this. So that's my expectation. So buckle up is the best thing I can say. Take one more call here before we end up in this next break. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I'd like to talk about two things. One is Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and secondly, the voting process. Now, Andrew, if you ask anyone in politics who knows me, they tell you I'm a policy guy. I want to see a candidate's platform, planks, and policies. I wrote about global, national, and local politics, policy, and politicians for 9 years while writing a weekly opinion column for the El Paso Times. And a couple of my columns about reforming Congress and bringing the country together were reprinted in USA Today, and they can be found online. Now, I've been criticizing popes and presidents, plutocrats, and their purchased politicians probably for longer than you have been alive. And I have been criticized for doing so. I've been called a communist, an America hater, told to go back to Mexico just for criticizing presidents, politicians, their policies, the government, and business. But I'm not primarily a personality voter. So when deciding on who to hire or who to vote for, informed managers and critical voters look at an applicant's and candidate's resume, their record, and other important things like their character, morality, and ethics, or lack thereof. And in the investment industry, we run a criminal background check, which Trump would have failed. But even if someone was the greatest salesman, money manager, business leader, or political leader, but I objected to his lifestyle, rhetoric, values, or lack of them, and I wouldn't care what his policies were. I would not hire that person or vote for that politician if their personal life was drowning in salacious scandals, dozens of accusations of sexual assault, criminal investigation, and lawsuits.
Okay, you said at the start here that we were going to be talking a bit about Ukraine, so I'm hoping we come around to that point here before the interest wanes.
Oh, okay. Well, so let's talk about policies and politicians. The chief kleptocrat of Russia, the former head of the commie KGB, patron and pal of failed former two-time impeached President Trump, Vladimir Putin, has invaded Ukraine again. And he's been warring with Ukraine since 2014, including during Trump's presidency. Trump called his patron Putin's invasion of Ukraine genius, savvy, and wonderful.
Okay, let's get something straight about that here. That was an interview that was held earlier this week and on our air during the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show, one that I took the time to listen to myself here because I figured that'd be coming up in kind of a similar format here. And very specifically, the actions and invasion condemned, but there were some, I guess, policy similarities seen by the former president about how to deal with borders, and something he has continued to focus on, one that I personally disagree with him on myself. But if you have any mistake about being in favor of the current invasion going on in Ukraine by practically any U.S. official, policy or politically based or not, I think you're going to be sadly mistaken. Because seriously, this does present a dire threat to U.S. security and safety economically. Pick a subject, and it's going to be that way going forward here. So I guess it falls a little bit flat for me when you say that, yeah, you find it important to focus on policy here, but then you go into kind of reverse cult of personality is the way you seem to be describing it here. Let's make one thing clear, that I also do look at policy, but when a lot of people end up saying that, oh, well, I look at policy, but then it only seems to be applied one way or the other, like, well, I only look at the policy of the people that I disagree with, and then, well, I assume the policy of the people I like is going to be fine and good in any way. So that's why I think that it's not that there is a policy focus that people are disagreeing with or on the balance find themselves objecting to in this line of inquiry that we keep revisiting, but more specifically that it only seems to be directed one way and only against the things that you don't happen to like here. You're fine to have your own preferences. I've definitely had my own preferences, but when doing flat analysis of will this be good or not, it's kind of like what we said about history. If history only makes you proud, you're probably not studying history. And if policy only ever makes you happy, you're probably not looking at actual policies, because there are a lot of features. I've said it before, and I will say it again before we're done with any of these subjects here, that I've never found a politician, president on down, that I've agreed with 100%, bound to the balance of who I support or not in the debate over the differences of their policies. But I've often found myself with any presidential administration, since I've been paying attention to politics anyway, that I've been like, what the hell are you doing? More often than not, lately it does feel like, but that's how flat analysis goes. So if you're really wanting to say that, yes, I looked at the policies, I would love to hear what you actually have to say about an actual policy you have liked of, frankly, any administration, but particularly the previous one here. So we're going to move on right now to that break. So thanks for the point in the call. If you're wanting to call in yourself, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a crash Joe Battle Boulevard, southbound at Vista del Sol on the 10 eastbound from the loop out to East Lake. Still slow with 5-minute delays. 10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne. You've got 5-minute delays. Got an injury accident just popped up. Crash on West Side Drive south of Artcraft. And EMS on the scene at Yarborough Drive southbound at Vista del Sol for an accident. Carrie Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
It's Ram Truck Month at Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Don't wait for your tax refund. Buy now and get huge savings with zero down. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months on all new 2022 Dodge Charger, SXT, and GT models. Huge selection of new cars, trucks, and SUVs with huge savings. 2022 Ram trucks with 2.9% APR for 72 months. Zero down. Zero payments for 90 days. Get her done. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. We've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. The all-new Silent Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Supercenter has a great selection with more arriving daily. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Silent Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is still fun. At I-10 at Silent Park Drive or online at silentparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso. El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APR, $13.89 per thousand finance. Also like vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. And a lot of subjects we're dealing with here today. The overwhelming elephant in the room, of course, the rapidly evolving Ukraine situation and drawing it down. What that's going to mean here, we've already heard from, what's going on at the people being deployed from this area, service members that have originated from here. We've heard from previous callers, as well as what's going on at the, or likely to be continuing to go on when you head to the gas station, grocery store, all of that. So some of that analysis coming in. Also got elections on the mind because we are in the midst of those. Have that attorney general debate going on right now. 3 of them anyway. The incumbent not participating in that, Ken Paxton, attorney general of Texas, apparently declining that, which just makes me personally sad, but probably have more on that for you as results come in and interpretations from that debate here. More for that you on the upcoming shows as well. But if you want to call in during the show, lines full up at the moment, but that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Let's go back to the lines here right now. We do have, Andrew on the west side here on the line with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. The crisis in Ukraine, I feel it will hit home here in many, many ways. Not only economically, and due to shortages. But we need to be vigilant along the border and be careful because not only are we prone to cyber attacks, Putin is a very smart man. This guy, he is a lawyer from St. Petersburg University, and I'm not praising, his tactics or anything like this, but the guy is savvy, and he does have a PhD, former KGB person, and he'll utilize his sleeper sources.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've heard of a group called Bratva. Have you?
Bratva, no, maybe not that one, but I've been encountering a lot more Russian phrases than I ever expected to within these last few weeks.
Okay, Bratva is Russian for the Russian mob. Okay,
Oh,
and
okay.
they're very active in the Bronx area, that area of New York. But anyway, we need to be careful because, like I said, I have no doubt that he's one to utilize his sources and covertly causes harm over here.
I mean, absolutely. It would be a mistake to underestimate Vladimir Putin because, again, he was a head honcho in the KGB, which is not something that, I mean, whether the stupidity of the whole system is in question, is something that incompetent people ended up doing. So to say that this person is just, oh, well, he's an idiot, why would he do any of this, would be a grave mistake, in my estimation.
Right, that is correct. Now, in reference to your caller, the supporter of Alan West. Okay, yes, Alan West. He is a good candidate. He is, and I'm sure he's a nice guy. But she did mention that Abbott, glorified himself and didn't really do anything. Well, to point out several things that she missed upon. Well, Abbott did mobilize the Guard. He did mobilize the DPS. He did. He has utilized them to go after criminals who are breaking the laws along the border. Also, remember the 900 feet of border wall that was constructed in Starr County.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there have certainly been efforts there, and I mean, she had her analysis of it, and whether or not he's been the best or the only governor on the border is up for interpretation, but it has certainly been a focus of his, administration and particularly campaign here lately of the border issues. I mean, it came with a bit more sharp focus, I think, once it was being brought up by opponents as that potential wedge issue, but to say that he has been weak on it, at the very least the way he's been portraying it, doesn't quite add up in my estimation as well.
That's correct, because I am sure there's only 4 states that border the Mexico border with the United States, and that's Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Definitely, Michelle Lujan Grisham have not done anything to secure the border, and definitely Gavin Newsom hasn't done it. And most recently, 22 hours ago, the Arizona state legislature approved $700 million to construct a border wall in Arizona.
Yeah, I was actually looking that up here because it was recalled during the Arizona State of the State address in 2022. Doug Ducey, the governor there, mentioned some initiatives he is focusing on. Wanted to create an America's Governor Border Strike Force, additional infrastructure and physical barriers at the border. So wouldn't necessarily say he's been necessarily as active as Abbott has been already, but certainly a focus out of his administration as well.
Yes. And last but not least, I must reference that Raul character. I respect his right to speak and his opinions. Yes, but please focus more on policy and issues. It's getting rather vexatious of him, this continuous topic. But like I said, I respect his right to speak.
I mean, we'll keep doing what we do on this program of taking up those calls, and we will take on all comers, even though, we're practically in Friday at this point anyway with the way we're focusing on it. We do more of a broad analysis and take different calls on Fridays. We'll still keep doing what we're doing because I think the conversation needs to be had. And even if you disagree with a point, I know this is something I get a lot of flack for. Even if you disagree with a point, I find it useful to at least have the perspective of what the person who's wanting to call in and talk about it espouses and how that can then play into how you even consider that other opposing viewpoint.
Well, like I said, I respect his right to speak, and I will fight for anybody's right to speak, no matter how much I disagree with them.
I mean, absolutely, and particularly given our current global difficulties we're looking at and staring down practically the barrel of, it comes into sharp focus for me as well, the differences of I mean, even as we talked about the death toll we are seeing in Ukraine, there are estimations of thousands that have been thrown into jail within Russia for protesting against this war. So that is something that I find, well, we'll keep doing what we do because I enjoy and very much am in favor of continuing to espouse and protect the freedoms we do enjoy here.
Roger that, and thank you very much.
No, I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one out there. We'll squeeze in one more quick one here if we can. We do have George over in Brooklyn, or Jorge in Brooklyn. Thanks very much for joining us.
You're welcome, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to comment on the consequences part of politics, who has given to us a president who has measured out responsibly a reasonable response to the crisis that is inflicting Eastern Europe, so as to not engage us in a posture that would inflame our passions and potentially harm us more greatly than the actions that the Russians have taken are going to harm us. And so I want to compliment Joseph Biden, our president, for the measurement that he is advocating with regards to the interests that are Russian, that are financial, that perhaps in that way they'll come reasonably back to the agreements that exist in Europe.
I mean, yeah, it has been interesting because, okay, specifically the Minister of Foreign Affairs within Ukraine early this morning, in fact, at this point, called for 5 specific things, called for devastating sanctions on Russia, including SWIFT, fully isolate Russia by all means and all formats, weapons, equipment for Ukraine, financial assistance, and humanitarian assistance. And it has largely fallen to, with, the equipment that has not been as much a focus of the statements, but certainly has been present in the weeks leading up to this. The sanctions have been the primary call out of Ukrainian officials for this. So the reluctance then within actually European allies and implementing particularly that SWIFT that part of it, which again, not as a banking expert, but having, done my relevant Googles on it, it is essentially a part of the banking system that allows for communication and therefore greater integration. And essentially, if you're not able to do that, you will have lost a serious amount of connection with the international banking order, and the expected damage that could do to Russian interests as part of it has been an interesting lack of willpower within, again, some European allies, I think 2 specifically.
All right, then. You have a good evening.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it there. All right, we got to take that next break right now, but coming out of the break, we'll get to more of those calls on the line. We're doing that through the end of the hour here, so we'll squeeze in what we can. Oh, geez, yeah. A lot of comments coming in about this situation, and we'll continue talking about it. We'll just consider this as an extension of Friday, but we'll focus more on it coming up there. Do have stuff about elections. I got some numbers that I promise we'll get to here outside of call. So if you want to call in, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back out this break.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. The city of El Paso continues to address worker shortages as it works to fill more than 500 open positions. The job vacancy rate climbed to 23% in January. That's compared to 13% in January of 2020. Since the initial report, the city has received more than 200 applications, the majority of them with the police department. The city says it's working to speed up the application process. Former Las Cruces School Superintendent Dr. Karen Trujillo will be honored this week. Friday marks 1 year since she was killed in a tragic accident. She was hit by a car while walking her dogs in her Las Cruces neighborhood. There will be a memorial mass in Trujillo's honor at Holy Cross Catholic Church tomorrow at 12:10 in the afternoon. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a crash Joe Battle Boulevard southbound at Vista del Sol on the 10 eastbound from the loop out to Eastlake. Still slow with 5-minute delays. 10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne. You've got 5-minute delays. Got an entry accident just popped up. Crash on West Side Drive south of Artcraft. An EMS on the scene at Yarborough Drive southbound at Vista del Sol for an accident. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Boy, it's been a windy few days here in our backyard, but at least those winds will begin to subside through the evening, leaving us with much lighter winds overnight and much nicer winds through the rest of this week. In fact, our weather pattern changes yet again, this time to more of a fair forecast with plenty of sunshine, warming temperatures, and lighter winds.
This report is sponsored by Gila River Hotels and Casinos.
Experience bigger, bolder, and better at Phoenix, Arizona's newest resort with new guest rooms, suites, pools, and amenities. Taste the here and now at our new rooftop restaurant and lounge. It's time to own your moment, so you do you. For more information, visit playathila.com.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State. This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we are talking about here today, and a lot we will continue to discuss as we, do that whole live local thing. I mean, the impacts coming out of the Ukraine will probably still be evolving and continuing to be felt over the coming days, weeks, if not months, and hopefully not much longer, but the cloudy crystal ball is practically cracked at this point for how this is going to turn out. I mean, there's some analysis we can do, and we'll continue to do so, but a lot is up in the air. I think the situation continues to evolve rapidly, but we still got plenty to talk about here locally in the meantime. Are in the midst of elections, and again, we got some polling numbers coming out today showing some of those divides. Well, really nothing too surprising there. Showing that, among other things, very likely strongly clenched victories coming up for the people would expect to at the top of the ballot, but there are the potential for some surprises, and even more specifically, Ken Paxton, even as he is not in the debate happening right now, or it was going on a little bit earlier today between the other candidates, Land Commissioner George P. Bush, former U.S. Rep. Louis Gohmert, and former Texas Supreme Court Justice Eva Guzman, all debating it out there. Very much possibly a runoff between one of those three and Paxton, according to the latest polling number, him polling at about 43%, according to a new poll out from The Hill and Emerson College. So a lot more to come out from that, and a lot more of those campaign finance numbers as well. And just updates on that, again, very likely challenge coming then in November at the top of the ballot, looking at Greg Abbott's, according to this poll, of 1,000 likely voters, about 52% to Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke's 45%. So as we get closer to things, does seem to get a little bit tighter within all of these races, but we got a lot more to talk about here, and impacts being seen from all of this. James Radcliffe asking, why is Vladimir Putin the bad guy when both Ukraine and Russian presidents do not benefit the U.S. at all? I mean, I think it's the analysis works out that this is an action pretty unilaterally taken by Putin and some kind of calculus that is hard to unwrap, but maybe we'll get into more of that tomorrow as the situation continues to evolve, of invading another country. So I think that kind of answers that question for me here. Jack Wally pointing out that a hacker shut down a whole pipeline a year ago, not telling what else they can do. And the cybersecurity implications have absolutely been one of the more concerning ones that I get to out of the possibilities here. Ed Clora saying that data wiping software has been found on Ukraine computers. And yeah, and then Kevin Williams on the polling numbers going to tell us that someone on the ballot has a 20-point lead over the blank space running against them. I mean, the polls say what they are, but whether the polls reveal themselves to be accurate in terms of the actual election, well, we got some time to go there. Don't forget to go out and vote. You got the chance to do so tomorrow and through the weekend. And there, of course, we got Election Day on Tuesday. Oh, it is. Also, the State of the Union that day. We'll have to talk more about the coverage. We'll be bringing you there tomorrow just because we're going to be running out of time here. Got a couple more calls to get on the line here. We do have Jerry on the west side with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. First, I want to congratulate you on being offered and taking the helm of the History Channel on the radio.
Oh,
El
certainly.
Paso History Channel.
Yep, the El Paso History Radio Show airing 10 to noon on Saturdays. We've had some announcements coming up about that, certainly. And just as I've been saying, these two shows are important to me and will continue to be what they are in their own regards, and the twain shall not mix.
Uh-huh. Okay, on to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
We got to ask, what is ultimately Putin's idea of winning this?
Mm-hmm.
Because if he was looking at not having a NATO country next to him, but if he invades all the way into Ukraine, Poland is right next to it, and he will have one there.
Mm-hmm.
And then if he puts in a buffer zone, DMZ type of thing, that will allow Ukrainian nationals or the patriots there to orchestrate clandestine and guerrilla warfare activities.
Mm-hmm.
So that will keep on going. That war has been going on since 2014 when they invaded Crimea.
Yep.
And east of Ukraine, eastern part of Ukraine. So a lot of this is bad on us for not seeing it coming when we should have helped out Ukraine, not put military troops in there. We can put trainers in there and supply them with equipment, ammunition, and such. Now, I understand that Obama did supply them with non-lethal aid.
Mm-hmm.
And then President Trump did supply them with lethal aid, but it was limited. And it was limited because of our Congress and our Senate.
Yep.
Because people did not want to get involved in that. And now we're looking at basically a repeat of the 1930s when Germany ramped up and they killed a bunch of people, and Japan ramped up and invaded China, China being Japan this time, and
Mm-hmm.
Russia being Germany this time. So I know that you say that history doesn't repeat itself, but it dang sure sometimes looks like it comes real close.
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And boy, does it feel like we've heard
Yes.
this tune before. Absolutely.
Okay. Let me talk with Raul a little bit.
Okay.
I want to ask him if he had voted for Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton. If he did, I would have him know that Bill did basically the same thing as Donald Trump, and Hillary should have been put in jail for having classified information on her server that she did not register with the government with classified material, sending out information that people could get anytime because it was not secure. So she did break the law there. So it's one of them things. You pick what you want and the people you want to defend, and bigotry lives in everybody.
Yeah, that's
Thank
what
you, sir.
Oh, no, I appreciate the points in the call there. And yeah, that's why I find when people say, well, I'm just doing political analysis on it here, like, sure, but if you're not finding anything that you don't like about the people you claim to support or espouse the values of, and only find things you don't like about the people that you're otherwise ideologically opposed to, that's not politics at that point. You're just doing here's who I like, and it's a tribal thing, practically. It's like the original hack of the human psyche, that it's an us versus them thing, and we can only ever do good and they can only ever do bad. And reality is so much different than that. And yeah, history doesn't repeat itself, but it definitely rhymes. To be more specific with it, this is starting to feel like the Lend-Lease period of World War II that the U.S. was involved in, not actively involved in the, what was it? Glenn Lease, then Cash and Carry started the program. When it was the lead up to that point, starting to feel a lot like that, even just within the last 24 hours here, or the lead up to it. Anyway, got at least one more call on the line here we'll take right now. We do have Harry with us on the east side. Harry, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hey, Andrew, good to talk to you. I was going to ask you about the history show on Saturday morning. I keep Andrew J. Polk keeps coming up. And I hope that when you open the show or you bring up John Wesley Hardin again. I loved it when he was in the downtown hotel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple comments to make.
Sure.
I might change the tone here a little bit. First of all, I want to tell you, I'm impressed with Raul. I don't agree with a lot of the things he says is politics, but this guy is intelligent. He speaks well. He's educated. He's been a journalist. And in my opinion, and I hope people get mad at me for this, he's probably more intelligent than the people that are calling in that don't like his comments. But that's neither here nor there.
Okay.
Also, the election, Alan J. West come up. I want to mention something. He was a war hero in Iraq. He was a major. He pulled a 45. He was going to shoot 2 Iraqi prisoners for information. And the Army was going to court-martial him over that. But there was so much outrage over it that they dropped it. And he ended up getting promoted to lieutenant colonel and retiring. And he started out in politics in Florida. Now, he's a good man. He's my kind of guy, but he's not going to beat Abbott. Let's be serious here. Everybody that's picking, you're not going to remove a sitting governor. You're just not. It's not going to happen. There's too many things involved, and it's just not going to happen. Even Beto O'Rourke is a good guy. He's got a lot of smarts. Now, the real reason I called is I got through to the Mark Levin show about 3 months ago. Okay. And I was talking to the screener. You talked to the screener before you talked to Mark Levin.
Sure.
And the screener asked me, he said, what did you want to talk to Mark Levin about? And I said, well, all we do is talk, and write books, and nothing accomplishes nothing. Nothing comes out of it. It hasn't changed anybody. It's like preaching to the choir. The people that are reading those books, for example, are all in favor of what's going on with the people that they appreciate in the government. And he asked me, he said, well, what would you do about it? And at the time, he caught me flat-footed, Andrew. I did not have an answer. But had I had more time to think about it, I would have responded with, when you get a third-rate, two-bit, criminally invested government at the top, there's not much you can do about it. And we talked about the political angle of why voting is so important. That's why voting is so important. And there's been a lot of comments made regarding that. And, and I'm betting right now, all the folks that voted for Biden are having buyer's remorse. They're having buyer's remorse. And that's my opinion on it. So I'm going to shut up. And, oh, by the way, you handle yourself well with the response of Raul. He brings the best out in you too. So there you go.
Well, again, I hope against hope sometimes that all of our callers will bring up interesting, informative, and debatable topics. Doesn't always happen, but I try to bring my best regardless of it. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, you have a good one there. All right, we are overdue for that next break right now. Coming out of it, we'll wrap up this show, talk about what we are setting up for tomorrow and for next weekend for future days here for you. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Heads up for a crash with injuries on the I-10 westbound at the Schuster exit ramp. I-10 eastbound at Copia, an injury accident there with EMS on the scene. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, it's slow and go to 5 to 10 minute delays. And Pebble Hills at Lee Trevino. Look for an injury accident there and take Yarborough or Edgemere as alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Texas Secretary of State. Elections are coming up, Texas. Are you vote ready? Find all the information you need about the approved IDs and important dates at votetexas.gov today. Powered by the Texas Secretary of State.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/.
Hey, Texas! We want to remind you that it's election season. In Texas, you'll need an approved form of ID to vote. Visit votetexas.gov to learn what types of photo ID you can bring to the polls and what to do if you don't possess and can't reasonably obtain one. And if you're eligible to vote by mail, learn about the requirements and how to identify yourself on your ballot by mail materials. So visit votetexas.gov today and get vote ready.
Here's Joe Biden's strategy for the border crisis.
There will not be another foot of wall constructed in my administration. In the first 100 days of my administration, no one will be deported at all.
Biden's reckless border policies have emboldened dangerous drug cartels. Listen to Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayburn.
There's a clear and present danger. It's deadly fentanyl, and it's killing our kids. How's it getting here? Through our southern border. That's why Governor Abbott's deployed the National Guard to assist law enforcement at the border. He's given us new authority to arrest trespassers. He's increased jail capacity to handle criminal arrests. Joe Biden should be securing this border, but he won't. That's why Governor Abbott is getting the job done.
Governor Abbott is endorsed by the National Border Patrol Council. On March 1st, vote for Governor Greg Abbott, securing the future of Texas.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to participate in the show. If you're tuned in us while on the road on there, stay safe. But there's so much to get into here. We're going to probably have to not take any more calls here today because we are more or less out of time here. I have promised that we will take those pound 250 calls when they come up here. So if you want to leave us a message that way after the program here, pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso. So you dial pound 250, you get a message saying, say the keyword after the beep, and then say Talk El Paso. You can leave us a message, particularly when we're off air or ahead of our shows. Good way to do that. Particularly ahead of tomorrow. We are headed into Friday and Free for All Friday and all that comes with that. And I'm sure it'll be a particularly all over the place one here. A lot of commentary coming in right now, even just about, education of some other individuals here. James Radcliffe with a point worth debating here, believe it or not, even if it may seem simple. But China invaded the U.S. Would Biden impose sanctions? And that's about it. So that is actually a pretty astute question when you consider the implications that come into it. Of all the calculus going on here, my reading of the implications and motivations of Vladimir Putin would be he would love it nothing more if the U.S. were to deploy unilaterally forces into Ukraine right now. Because among other things, it would no longer trigger the Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which is that an attack on one is an attack on all, because if it's an offensive action, they don't have to do anything. Whether or not they would be a question to be asked of that hypothetical. But more specifically, it would mean that he was just facing off on the U.S. and could probably draw China into it as well with the Taiwan. Love nothing more. So we are talking about different things. And yeah, the question often comes up, well, we are dealing with a military situation. Why isn't there a military response from us? And it's because of, well, these international agreements. We are way closer to World War I than World War II when it comes to the entanglements involved in all of this. So that's the way you kind of got to think of it. Think about it closer. If China invaded the Philippines, what would we do? That's a little bit closer of a question to ask if you want to do a little bit more of an apples to apples kind of comparison here. But we'll get to more of those questions coming up tomorrow. And so we'll leave it on one final point here from that pound 250 call. Again, pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso. You can leave your own message along these lines.
This is Messiah Frankie. It just came to my attention. Oh, what kind of mush is this? This guy out there in Italy in the Vatican, goes out there and says, hey, all you leaders need to look at your conscience and then see what you're going to do about this Ukraine thing. Big flash for you. It's already started. So your musings about all this piety and wonderful stuff from non-existent God is as useless as trying to teach a sea urchin how to play a concert piano. Oh, go get a job, you morons.
It always amazes me how in any situation of severity or even levity, there will be a take that I just don't even know what to do with. I guess being mad at the Pope for saying that people should be concerned about this is not the one I was expecting today, but sure, you do you. But I think more people, particularly in this community, be a bit encouraged that, I mean, Pope Benedict, not Benedict, but the current Pope, very much focused on, in my reading of most of what he talks about, not doing what previous popes have, and, the one that was on the seat during World War II, had a lot of criticism for him about not being more active in it. So I think he's looking at that amongst other things, and I would frankly appreciate even more focus on the international implications that come with all of this here. Anyway, we got to leave it there for today because we're out of time here for this program. I do want to personally thank each and every one of you who have called in, commented, participated in the show, or just tuned in and hopefully told a friend. You all really would help make the show what it is and our mission to continue talking about the issues that affect us here in the borderland, because no one else is going to do it like we do, even if some of the issues are huge, overwhelming, and evolving right now. We'll get into more of that tomorrow, but in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow for Free For All Friday.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heads up for a crash with injuries on the I-10 westbound at the Schuster exit ramp. I-10 eastbound at Copia, an injury accident there with EMS on the scene. I-10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, it's slow and go to 5 to 10 minute delays. And Pebble Hills at Lee Trevino. Look for an injury accident there and take Yarborough or Edgemere as alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
Louis Gohmert, what a wonderful guy. This is a man who's been a friend of mine from day one.
I'm Louis Gohmert. As a congressman, I worked with President Trump to build the wall.
Thank you, Louis.
He's the only one that might be even tougher than us on the board. As a judge, I applied the law equally, no political favors.
Louis Gohmert, the Texas conservative with Texas integrity.
Ken Paxton's attacks on me are now revealing a real desperation. It doesn't bother me. As a judge, I've stared down even the most hardened of criminals. The fact is, Ken Paxton has been indicted for fraud and is being investigated for bribery. And the Democrats are licking their chops. But Texans shouldn't be punished for his actions. I'm Louis Gohmert, and as your next Attorney General, I'll restore the rule of law, and we will secure the border once and for all. Trust me, I'll be the woke mob's worst nightmare.
Louis Gohmert, Fort Texas. Political ad paid for by Louis Gohmert Campaign.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
What's done more to improve